However, I'm going to go a little bit Homer. We've seen him a couple times. Gosh darn it. This isn't even fun. So I've got... Ruff. He'll turn, give, Terry, busting into the open field. There he goes. Jaden Terry, Grandville with an answer and another Bulldog lead. Give to Scurry's fake. Biss in the backfield, evading a man, throws out of a tackle, incomplete. Zeros across the scoreboard. Harper Woods have won the state championship, their first in school history, in unbelievable, thrilling fashion.
We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had
fake handoff, guy up the middle, big hole, bursting over the 40 to the 45-50, angling right at the 40, 35-30, racing to the 25, 20, outside the numbers, 10, 5, touchdown, Muskegon, Mackay guy, 80 yards to the house. Hey everyone, welcome to game night, and the postseason is here. The drive to Detroit is here on game night and Michigan Sports Radio. Nate Dreyer, Chandler Timmer, packed show here as it is our annual MGN playoff preview show, CT, and it's going to be interesting. We're on the show going to be able to talk a little bit about our game that we are doing, Hamilton Unity Christian. We of course will talk a lot about the Grandville Bulldogs, the Rockford Rams. We're going to make our picks in the bulk of the divisions as well, in terms of champion and runner-up at least, so you can certainly have a look at that. And of course, as I always say, thanks to the Bennett Center Farmers Insurance Agency, along with Centennial Securities, for presenting Game Night on Michigan Sports Radio and MichiganGameNight.com. And follow us across social media at MI Game Night. Same tagline at and handle, whatever the term is, on all social media. But yeah, playoffs are here, and I don't know. There's a lot of interesting matchups, but I was on Lou Gamelin's preview show for Michigan Sports Radio, recorded on Lou Gamelin's preview show, which I think actually is coming out the same day as this show, and we were talking about it. But I can't remember a year that there are more teams in West Michigan that truly feel like if 5 teams from the west side of the state make Ford Field, and if 4 or 5 of them win state championships, it won't be surprising. It is that strong of a lineup this year.
Yeah, it really is, and pretty exciting. I know, and there's always been good teams around West Michigan that have gone on to win state titles, but in the past it's almost seemed like a lot of them have either been in the same division that kind of beat each other up, of course, early on in the playoffs. And this year it seems to be spread out pretty well when you kind of look at some of the contenders amongst the divisions. You've kind of got 1 or 2 teams in pretty much all the top divisions, at least, that it seems like could go on a serious run. Now, I mean, anything can happen in the postseason. You never know, but definitely a lot of teams that have that potential to go on a deep run.
All right, we have a lot to get to, so let's get right into it. I had a great conversation with Grandville's defensive coordinator, Casey Zenner, talking a little bit about the season for the Bulldogs, his first year being a defensive coordinator at this level. Of course, he has a really rich coaching history that we get into a little bit. And also, of course, he previews Grandville Rockford, which, again, this is a guy that played at Rockford under Coach Munger. Now he coaches at Grandville. So if you're talking about someone that understands the rivalry, I don't know if there's a better person we could have talked to this week. So let's hand it over now to that interview with Grandville defensive coordinator, Casey Zenner. And welcome back, everyone, to Game Night and Michigan Sports Radio. Nate Dreyer with you, and joined by a guest that certainly is going to be really good at previewing one of the biggest playoff matchups in the first weekend of this 2024 postseason. It's first-year defensive coordinator for the Grandville Bulldogs, Casey Zenner. And first off, Casey, thank you so much for your time tonight, and how are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me. Just excited, obviously, to get the opportunity to make the playoffs and obviously to compete. And we know in West Michigan, when you make the playoffs, you're going to, have a couple rivalry games that pop up. So guys are excited and just grateful to be where we're at.
Yeah, and first off, because we're fair here, speaking of rivalries, a couple weeks ago I had Gibby Connolly on the show, and he's a Grand Valley commit. I'm a Grand Valley alum, and I was telling them, make sure, hopefully in a couple weeks here, you're going to be able to talk a little bit of crap to Coach Zenner. That unfortunately did not go the way that either of us had planned last weekend. So for those who don't know, Casey is a former Ferris State Bulldog himself. So I'll open up the floor if you have any statement to make to the Grand Valley alums and players among us. Certainly, I have to let you have the floor after that performance.
It just was, really proud of, the fight that Ferris had, and just obviously Coach Anise, and there's a lot of history there. But at the end of the day, that's what football is all about, especially in West Michigan. I mean, it was 2 championship-level programs, 2 of the best 3 teams in the nation. And, I mean, it was a heck of a day for the Dogs. They made some big plays early, got some big stops. But at the end of the day, I mean, just being able to go to that game and watch that game, that's what football is all about. 2 teams that work extremely hard, have great programs in a great venue like Lubbers on a beautiful day. And it was just awesome, to see a lot of my old teammates. And like you said, people you played against that went to Grand Valley, you guys know each other really well. And it was awesome. Obviously, the way the years have been going, they'll probably run into each other again. But, you got to love getting a win down in Lubbers whenever you're a Bulldog. And, kind of see that student section start leaving, third quarter. And it was just a great day and something that I was grateful to be a part of.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of speaking of your history, so obviously your first year coming to Grandville, so fans maybe still getting to know you a little bit. I guess kind of take us through a little bit of your history, where you've played, where you've coached, and what's led you here to Grandville.
So growing up, coming from a split family, my dad actually moved to Rockford when I was in middle school. So ended up being a Ram and got to play for Coach Munger. That was coming from Wisconsin. We didn't have anything, like football has out here in West Michigan, from the stadiums to the cultures, just, to the legendary coaches where I grew up. It wasn't really anything like that. So that first year I was there, Rockford lost in the state title at Ford Field. And I just remember being like completely eye-opened at just how important football was. And I'm the son of a sports reporter, so I grew up, on the sidelines and again, had been to hundreds of games and had never really seen anything quite like that. So that first run, that was when I was hooked. I knew I wanted to be a football player. And then, kind of getting into it, I actually got cut, from tried out for the 78ers team when I was in 7th grade and got cut. And it was one of the first things that, I'd ever been told you're not the best at and you got to work hard. And then ended up making JV as a freshman. So just, kept improving, but it was never given to me in this sport. And then had a pretty good sophomore year up on the varsity. My junior year, I tore all 4 knee ligaments right after the season. Was all state and was getting recruited by some big schools. So at that point, I kind of realized, I'm probably not going to be a Division I football player. No one wants, an undersized defensive back with knee injuries, right? So at that point, that's really when, I started narrowing down my decisions and actually ended up, down to Ferris and Grand Valley, like a lot of people from West Michigan, get down to. And just Coach Anise was the one guy that I really could see myself, playing for. And if you look at the culture he's built, a lot of those guys have ended up becoming coaches, which is, again, another cool piece of this story. Coach Vanderlaan was the quarterback when I was at Ferris, the OC over at Rockford, and they got a couple other guys on their staff, just like we got a couple other guys on our staff. But again, Coach Anise and, that culture of, he was a high school coach. He had Coach Sugars on staff, Coach McEwen, Coach Brady. He had a bunch of former high school coaches on that staff. And I think a lot of us, looked up to them and wanted to be like them and have gotten into coaching because of those guys. So very blessed, Again, it wasn't always given. Like Coach Anise offered me a scholarship based on how I kind of led the team out, not even how I played, because he came to recruit me. And, I was in street clothes that game against Lowell. And again, it just shows, like, in football, there's so much more than just talent and execution. There's like this part of it about being something bigger than yourself, where if you can just like will your teammates and lead your teammates, that's a massive role on a team that people might not always see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, then after Ferris State, you begin your work as a coach. I know that you're doing some grad school stuff as well, but then wound up on the staff at Western Michigan for the last few years. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of that history as well that followed your playing days?
Yep. Yeah. So I got into coaching up at Ferris. The first year we went to the national title, lost by 2 in an unbelievable game. But at that point, I knew I was hooked. It's what I wanted to get into, and ended up right after that game taking a role as an unpaid, basically intern at Western Michigan, and I was there for a spring ball and got a call. Coach Brady over at Saginaw Valley needed a special teams coordinator, so I hopped over there for a fall, and then right after the fall, I ended up getting a call back from Coach Espo, who was the DC at Western, and he offered me a graduate assistant position. And then, like I said, started as a low man on the total, kept showing up, kept working, and eventually ended up becoming an analyst and the linebackers coach with him. And again, it was just there were so many good people while I was there that taught me so much. Head coaches from Division I football, Division II football, Division III football, and then all the way down to just other guys my age, GAs that are working their way up, getting into the Big Ten and NFL type roles, like guys that I've come through with. I can think back to Ferris that first year. Dylan Roney is a coach over at the San Diego Chargers now, LA Chargers now, and he was like our student assistant that year we were at Ferris. So just constantly being surrounded by great people that whole time, and guys that wanted to grind, the guys that wanted to serve young people, guys that wanted to just learn and grow and get better. And that was being down at Western was unbelievable. Kind of just getting to be at my hometown school, got to just live out my dream and with people that I really cared about and that really took care of me and helped push me to be the best version of myself. So, and then, kind of just the way Division I football goes, we got a new AD. We went 5-7, played some good defense, but at the end of the day, leaders, had to make specific decisions, and Coach Lester ended up getting fired, and then I got to hang on the next year with Coach Taylor, who's the current head coach, and again, just his connections, his coaching style, all of that stuff kind of influences you, when you're first getting in. So I've just been very blessed.
Yeah, absolutely. And this year's team, I think we've seen a lot of that. You speak a lot of kind of week-by-week improvement. We've seen it with this unit. And, you guys, the last couple games of the season against West Ottawa and against a Caledonia team that, certainly is still a team that has got a lot of talent, can score. You guys played quite arguably your two best defensive games of the year. The offense played well as well. So kind of recap, especially that Caledonia win and how important it is for, this team as a whole to have such a complete performance, getting back and healthy, and how the vibes are right now heading into the playoffs off, such good performances to close the regular season.
I think the last 2 weeks, the guys really have taken control of their own destiny, bought into kind of the process that I've been trying to teach them and that our staff has been trying to implement. And it's really just buying into the little things and then just buying into the effort you have to attack each day. At the end of the day, this sport teaches you so much, but there's always one winner and one loser. And kind of like we started with, we're earning more weeks now. And the only way to earn more weeks is to go attack and go take it. And I think early in the year, we just kind of, we would try to feel the opponent out, where these 2 weeks we really just trusted the practice. And right when we took the field, it was kind of clicking from, that first drive. So that's just a credit to the guys. They were very coachable, because there's some tough weeks there where we had to be brutally honest with ourselves that, hey, this is not good enough and this is why. So addressing those issues, a lot of time with young people, they don't want to hear it. So actually being able to make the changes, I just want to credit those guys because they just keep showing up, they keep working. And like you said, it's all come together right in time for the playoffs. So hopefully, we just continue that process and just continue that execution, in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. And before we kind of transition into talking about this first, the playoff matchups, kind of want to go a little bit taking a look through this defense and kind of letting you highlight a couple guys and things you've seen. Starting up front on the defensive line, I think this is a changeable group. They've gotten great pressure all year. You see a lot of guys fitting into different roles in the defensive line. Kind of who has stood out on that defensive line? Where have you seen a lot of the big growth as this year's gone along up front? Because it certainly was a starring factor in that Caledonia game.
Just starting off, just Emery Moody, just the leader of that front. He's just a show up every day and work hard kind of guy. Doesn't maybe not the biggest, longest guy when you walk in, but he's gonna fight until he's got nothing left to give. And just his mentality, his work ethic, his, attention to detail has kind of spread, to the other guys. And some other guys that have really stepped up recently is Brett Becker. He obviously had played a lot more defense last year. So it's been great to just get him out there, another, senior guy who's played a lot of football that you can just trust on that edge. And then in the middle, we've had guys like Evan Wyman step up. Cadwell stepped up. Coops has been, a 3-year guy.
Mhm.
So again, we have depth, like you were saying, that we can rotate to just try to keep guys fresh. So that's been the biggest thing for us, is just having depth on the line, rotating guys in, getting our best matchups for specific situations, and really just teaching these guys the role of specific defensive linemen. Because, you got certain guys who are 2-down run stoppers. You got guys who are penetrators, and it's just trying to figure out what each guy is good at and then getting them to understand that and go try to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think the next level of linebackers, I mean, you guys are blessed this year with multiple multi-year starters at all three of those linebacker positions, and even more guys depth-wise that bring a lot. How much, when you have a group like Garrett, Braylon, and Reed at the linebacker position with that much, smarts and experience, how much easier does that make your job as a defensive coaching staff, and what more does that allow you to do when you have an experienced and hard-working, tough group like that at linebacker?
It's been unbelievable. I mean, Reed is a guy that I can relate to a lot. He's, coming off that massive knee injury last year. So he's a guy, like, I've been that guy in the offseason down in the dumps at times that, again, I had Coach Munger to me. I've been kind of like that to him, hard but fair. Like, there's going to be days where it sucks. That's when you just have to keep pushing. And then for him to be able to get to here now, the progress that he has made, just in the middle, it has been unbelievable, because he's used to playing every down, and we've kind of had to change his role up to get him in the best positions. But again, he has guys like Rocky and Bray that he can trust to be able to do certain things. So it's just been great for us, because again, one of the things that we've really been emphasizing, especially in the red, like, you have to be able to run and tackle. Well, everybody has a great running back in this conference. I don't care if you're the champion or where you finish in last place. There's going to be somebody that can run the ball. So our linebackers, they have to be able to play inside, outside, man coverage, blitz, zone coverage. So those guys and their versatility has been awesome. So I really appreciate the fact that them buying in and being willing to do multiple things.
Yeah, for sure. And lastly, the secondary, talking more about growth, I think, this has probably been the unit that, especially coming to the last couple weeks of the year, we've seen the most growth from start of the year to the end of the year, and now coming up with a lot of turnovers and, shutting down an offense in Caledonia that certainly had a lot of talent out wide and can throw the ball around. Where have you seen some of that biggest growth, and who have you seen the biggest growth out of in that secondary, as you guys really have turned that into, one of the strengths the last couple weeks here?
Yeah, again, I think, just having the ability to have different guys with different skill sets has really helped in the secondary. I mean, you got full-time guys back there like Josh Crater at our post safety that's done a great job in both the run and the pass recently. He's making tackles in the alley. He's high pointing the ball. And then you got, guys outside on the edge. JB has done a great job out on the edge all year. Miguel Rojas has done a great job for us. And then you got kind of guys, that come in for their specific roles. A guy we didn't really talk about at linebacker or D-line, but I mean, Tank has been unbelievable for us. Just whether we use him on the first level, the second level, the third level, as a spy on the quarterback, playing man coverage. He's just done so many things this year that, again, it's really awesome. It's almost just like throw him out there, and kind of like let him go do his thing. And then a guy like Newville, who, he's probably a college DB. He's our starting quarterback. So, again, you don't want to, put him in a bunch of high-risk situations, but you mean to tell me it's 3rd and 7? Like, we need our best in the field. He's got to find, find a spot. So, again, just our guys understanding their role and who they are and what their strengths are has really helped us throughout this year. Them just growing and learning about themselves, learning about the game. That's been one of the most rewarding things that I've had as a coach.
Yeah, for sure. It's been fun, definitely, to watch, this group and the way it's changed and how much better it continues to get. And, again, peaking at the right time and peaking into a start to the playoffs that, it's the ultimate matchup. Every time these teams play, it is Grandville and Rockford. I guess, first off, I don't know if there's a single person more qualified to tell us about the Grandville-Rockford rivalry than you. You've been on both sides of it. You've now coached in it. You've played in it. Tell us what this rivalry means to the communities, to the kids, to the teams, and really what goes into this rivalry that's one of the best in West Michigan.
I tell our kids all the time, like, you're so blessed for what you have, because our football program is more than just a team. It is, like I said, a program and a community when we go up there, when we go up to the TED, you already know that there's going to be hundreds to thousands of Bulldog supporters that are following you that want nothing more than you to come home with a victory and getting that one more week. That being said, when you're playing a team like Rockford, again, it's more than just a team, more than just a program. It's a community, okay? So, like, knowing that it's important outside of just winning and losing to other people, that should help motivate you in the offseason because it matters. Kind of like you were saying, I mean, growing up in Rockford, like, football was a way of life. You come to Grandville, it ain't no different. Like, people are scheduling their vacations around football camp in the offseason. Like, everything you do is to get a chance to make the playoffs, knowing that you're going to play another red school round one. So, especially for me, like I said, just getting to go against, you know, Jason and some of those other Ferris guys, getting to go against Coach Veen, the guy that coached me, Coach Cummings, like that's what, you know, that's what it's all about. It's you respect them. And at the end of the day, you know, if you lose to them, you know, you're going to have to hear about it for another year.
Yeah, for sure. And this game is going to be interesting. Of course, we know the matchup on the Grandville offense versus the Rockford defense, you know, side of the ball. We've seen Coach Stigo, Coach Vanderveen go head-to-head on that side of the ball so often. Let's focus on your side of the ball here in this matchup because I think it might be one of the most interesting parts of this ball game in terms of the unknowns. I think Rockford's offense the last couple weeks has really started to get rolling after they were slow the first couple weeks of the year. I think they're showing their physicality, their ability to run the football a little bit more down the stretch and certainly have talented guys to do that. You know, what are going to be some of the keys that you're looking at to try to slow down this Rockford offense, to force some turnovers and to put your offense in a position to go out and, you know, be able to put up some points and win the game?
I mean, I think the biggest thing, we're just going to have to be selfless. Like, we're all going to have to do our job. We're all going to have to be gap responsible. And then when we do our job and an opportunity is available, we're going to have to execute in the moment. Like, this is not a team that, you know, you get two chances at, all right? There's going to be a ball out there. It's a funny-shaped ball. It's going to take a funny-shaped hop. We got to come up with it. That's just what it is. That being said, they have a really big physical offensive line. We're going to have to be able to handle that up front. Poot is a great running back. You know, he's had big plays, you know, on offense, defense, special teams. We know he's, you know, very fast and explosive. We're going to have to be able to contain his big plays, all right? And then when they get fancy, they get tricky, we need to make sure that we're just on our responsibility because, you know, Coach Vanderland, they always have a trick up their sleeve, right? We got hit with one the first time. So we're just going to, again, play within the call and be selfless. But like I said, playoff football, it's 10 time. It's lose or go home. When that ball's in there, we got to come down with it if we want to keep playing and, you know, get that second game.
Absolutely. Cannot wait to see it. It's going to be an incredible matchup. Casey Zenner, defensive coordinator for the Grandville Bulldogs, thank you again so much for your time here tonight, and good luck in this one and good luck the rest of the way this year.
Definitely. Thank you so much, and thank for all you do, and just thank you, you know, to all the Bulldog supporters, and see you guys up at the TED.
All right. Sounds good. Grandville defensive coordinator Casey Zenner here on Game Night on Michigan Sports Radio.
Securities was founded based on the belief that the interests of our clients must always come first.
We listen and understand your objectives before making a recommendation.
We customize the portfolio of investments to fit your goals.
It is our commitment to provide a strong line of communication.
Our services include family wealth management, saving for retirement, and estate planning and trust services.
Getting started is as easy as picking up the phone. After all, when everything is said and done, isn't it about time?
It's the final game, folks. This one wins the series.
Struck out with the cheap seats? Important things aren't worth compromising. At Farmers, we offer both quality insurance and great savings. Here, take mine.
We are Farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Game Night is presented in part by Farmers Insurance, Bennett Zenner Agency, for all auto, home, specialty, life, and commercial insurance. See what a Zenner can do for you. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the MGN playoff preview here as we kick off our drive to Detroit. Nate and Chandler, thanks again. Thanks big time to KC Zenner for coming on. Terrific interview. Certainly just infectious energy comes off of that guy, and you can see why the team has certainly rallied around getting to play for him this year for the Bulldogs, and going to be such an interesting matchup as they take on Rockford. And let's get right into it. We're going to talk a little about Grandville Rockford. We're going to talk a little bit about Unity Hamilton before we get into our playoff picks, division by division, a little bit later. So Grandville Rockford. The main thing I think that comes out of this one, Chandler, is I think you've got a rematch of teams that are in a better place than, health-wise and play-wise than the first time around. So my question to you is, Grandville, Rockford, who is more betterer this time around?
Yeah, that's the big question. I think, you look at it from either side. For Rockford, they've got some more experience now for a quarterback that was pretty young at the time, early on in the season when these two teams met. Even though Rockford won, there was a couple losses in between there that are very unusual for that program, and so they've kind of rebounded from that. Have gone now 4 straight wins going into the postseason, so kind of starting to get that group to gel a little bit. Of course, that helps playing some of the easier teams in the conference, but at the same time, still able to put together some pretty good performances there. So I think they're kind of feeling like they're coming together at the right time for a group that was pretty inexperienced by their standards. But I think the Bulldogs at the same time, they're getting healthy, kind of feel like they're finding the right pieces at the same time. So for a Bulldogs team that has had their issues with Rockford, I think they feel like if they're fully healthy, they kind of found the game plan, the defense is playing a little bit better, they're willing to kind of take that matchup and see what happens.
No, I definitely agree. And again, the impact, we talked about it on the broadcast a lot, but the impact of and I know they were a little, I think Bruker was a little nicked up as well, but the impact of Jay Weiss coming back in this lineup, for as good of a job as as Matt Key did in his stead, there's just something about when you get an anchor back on the offensive line, and something about the way that was the most free running. Jaden Terry has obviously been great. He scored nearly 25 touchdowns this year, but when he's running right, as he always typically does on the stretch plays, behind Weiss and behind a right side of the line that's anchored by a 3-year starter like Jay, I think it definitely changes. The offense just looks different. It looks more similar to what it did the first week of the year when they scored at will versus Pick North versus any of the weeks that followed. Yeah,
I think so. I think you look back to the early part of the season, and they were playing incredible talent. You look at that Pick North game, and it's still crazy to think about the amount of talent that was on the defensive side of the football. And, of course, you can get in the debate about they haven't seen the T, blah, 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 all that stuff. But at the same time, it's like they were
the coaches listened to us, though. So
yeah, they did.
As we heard from multiple of them.
Got the scouting report straight from us. But
sorry, coaches.
Whoops. But no, I mean, they were having some massive runs against some really talented next-level type guys, and you kind of look at what was the difference between early on in the season when they were playing those teams and the middle part of the season when had some issues. And, yeah, I think having a healthy Jay Weiss back is a huge part of that now. Jaden Terry can do a lot just by himself, but I think if you give him a right edge there where he's got a block and can turn up field, and now instead of having to make a guy miss at the line of scrimmage, he's getting 5, 7, 10 yards down the field before he's having to make a guy miss. You just that kind of adds up, that snowballs over time, and no doubt having Jay Weiss along that side is going to help things out.
Yeah, and again, for Grandville, it's just this team just feels so much different than they have felt for a while here, and that's what makes it so interesting. Again, like, can you look at the revenge tour they can go on? Again, we're gonna a little bit later on in the show make our picks, and I will spoil that I don't think either of us had Grandville as the champion, which is a Herculean task to do that. But I will say, like, you look at this team's tour they go on, you get Rockford again, then you probably get Hudsonville again, then you you're going to match up against another T team in Howell. Then there's a chance based on who wins, you might wind up even seeing Davison again. And then maybe you get to see, like Belleville, who, you strip sacked Bryce 3 times and threw a couple picks or whatever in the scrimmage. But like this team, again, they're going to be underdogs, and sometimes we like to go over the top and whatever. I like to go over the top and whatever. Like, this team's going to be an underdog. It's underdog with DAWG. I'm gonna make that happen, by the way. Can't wait for the T-shirts when they win the state championship.
Yes.
T-shirts that the school can steal from me. But regardless, I think the main thing that comes out of this game, going to come out of that entire run, let's be frank about it, there's a mental block element to Rockford, and I think it's part of what, talking to Coach Zenner, I think where he's going to help, because, again, he's a Rockford guy kind of coming in like, whatever. And I think there definitely is an element into this game for Grandville that, I mean, you've seen it. They physically dominated them in the first half and then kind of fell apart in that second half, and they're going to have to get over that. And if they do, I believe this is way more of a coin flip game than any. I think you're going to see the picks come out, and it's going to all be Rockford, and I would maybe pick Rockford 51%, 49%, like right on the margin. But, like, this is, I think, truly a coin flip game. When you really see how the game went the first time, the fact that now Grandville's added back their best offensive lineman arguably as well, and they're healthier in general than they were then. So you add all that up, like, it's close. It's just going to come down to that the mental game in this one is going to be the biggest part of the whole game.
Yeah, it's going to be the biggest hurdle to try to overcome. I think, the things align there as far as this is probably the most down Rockford's been in a few years. This is a Grandville team that is getting healthy and also feels like they've got some more experience and can have the opportunity to try to beat this Rockford team. But, yeah, at the same time, it's hard to expect that when you haven't seen it. And that's nothing – I don't think the players in that locker room are like, oh, we're scared to play Rockford or anything like that. I'm not hinting at anything – that aspect. I think it's more just like you got to see it. You got, at least from the outside, outside the locker room from our position. It's been a while since the Bulldogs have been able to beat the Rams and feel like they're not the underdog going into that matchup. And so, not that they can't do it. I think some of the things we talked about schematically can be there and the things align there, but just it's one of those things where if they win this game, you start to kind of turn the page on that, and now you can move forward and say you don't have to think about the mental block there, but you just got to see it.
Two keys to this game. First off, the turnover margin. I think last time you look back on the game, Grandville commits a first half turnover. If they don't commit that turnover, they probably lead that game by 2.5 scores rather than half a score going into the halftime break. And you think about how much that might change just based on the run that Rockford got out of the break and what they did to start that third quarter. I think it's that big. The Grandville must at minimum tie, but probably win the turnover margin to win this football game.
Yeah, just any game like this, but especially against a rival Rockford like this, where you just can't afford those mistakes. The game you got to play just extremely, even more clean than what you're maybe thinking in any other type of game where it's going to be close as a team that historically shuts you down and as well as anyone ever has. And so if you're turning the football over and not only giving or taking away your own scoring opportunity, you're giving them good field position, now your defense is stressed, it all adds up, and you get one of those, even especially more than one of those, and suddenly you're looking at a really bad situation. So if you can kind of even just punt the football away rather than a fumble, that can be a win in this situation.
One Grandville offense, Rockford defense, I mean, we kind of know what to expect. Grandville will likely be more stymied than they are most weeks of the year, but they still have shown an ability to score 3-4 times the last couple of times they play. I think it'll be similar. I think Jay Weiss adding in a new element as well. I think Grandville has kind of overcome a little bit of Rockford as that traditional chop strategy, and I think Grandville has found a way to start overcoming that. By the way, note for Howell if you wind up seeing Rockford, by the way. But I think Grandville started to overcome a couple of the little things that Rockford has done to them traditionally, defensively. Again, also, they have a guy named Jaden Terry and a guy named Easton Sadinsky that are running as well as they have all year. I want to look at the other side of the ball as the last point on this game. Grandville's defense surging, looking as good as they have all year, and that Cal game especially so encouraging to me to take on a team that wants to throw the ball and wants to do the things with a running quarterback that has hurt Grandville in recent years and throughout this season, how good they looked. And then Rockford's offense is surging, getting physical, leaning on the offensive line. Isaac Poot is unbelievable as a running back. Essentially he's had to break Rockford's only playing one way rule because he's so good running the ball, even though they have 175,000 kids on the roster. So that's the side of the ball that's the X factor. Because if Grandville's defense comes out and if Grandville's defense can do the things to Rockford that they did to Caledonia, which, again, I think Rockford on a little bit different level this year than Cal, where Cal was, of course, down and young. But if Grandville's defense can do some of the things they did to Caledonia, which was completely stuffed them, like it was really a shutout minus penalties on the one drive, and then the last minute and a half of that game does not count.
No.
But it was darn near a shutout if it weren't for that. Essentially 2 straight weeks of darn near shutouts.
Yep.
You do that again, Grandville wins the football. Like, that's how important this side of the ball is, because for the first time ever, we're looking at a Grandville defense that could be an X factor to the positive for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I think so. I think that if the Bulldogs defense is just trying to, it doesn't even have to be close to a shutout. It's finding a couple stops somewhere along the line, and the play the last 2 weeks is definitely a confidence builder for that it's possible. I think there's been some ups and downs throughout the season to this point, and at times they looked like they were struggling a little bit, but down the stretch you make some plays, and suddenly you're shutting out some teams even though they're towards the bottom of the OK Red, where you kind of feel like you're getting play to where it needs to be. And so, it'll be another test against a Rockford unit that also feels like they're playing better than they did. It kind of mentioned that experience. They're feeling like they're better and a more explosive unit, kind of willing to lean on their strengths maybe a little bit more than they did early on in the season as well. But, that Grandville defense, if they can find some of that, find some turnovers. We talked about the turnover margin. It also goes the other way. If the Bulldogs can steal a turnover or two, that completely flips the game as well. And so, I think it'd be really interesting to see what they're able to do in this one.
And we'll definitely be tuned in. Brock Conkle and company will have it on Michigan Sports Radio this Friday. So then Hamilton and Unity Christian, where we're going to be at 6:30. You know where to listen through Michigan Sports Radio through our website as we begin our drive to Detroit for 2024. I guess let's start with what this game means for each team. Because first off, for Unity, the team's different than the 21 team. But they, again, I think this is a team that has to be feeling, and Coach Tibby would hate me saying this, but they're state championship or bust. I think it's that simple right now.
Yeah, that's kind of the standard that they've set with how they look throughout the regular season, and you kind of have the benefit of being able to compare them to teams of their own from the past, and they're right up there with it. I think to start off the season probably didn't have the hype that maybe the last team to make a run did, but what they were able to do early on in the season right away, they kind of been able to draw some attention, and then running through the regular season, definitely have to be one of the favorites to go on another deep run.
For Hamilton, they have not qualified for the playoffs since 2016, I believe, here after we graduated. Last time that they were able to make the postseason, at least qualifying. Everyone they beat Unity in 2020 during the COVID shortened year, which was again a Unity championship team because Unity had to forfeit that game. This is a stepping stone year for Hamilton. The fact that they're a playoff team, as I've kind of said to people, like the thing about Hamilton, they're just a good team this year. They're well coached. They do some great things schematically, but they've got great players as well, which is something that this program has not necessarily been able to say for a lot of the last 15, 20 years or so. And they just have good players, and this is, you want to talk about a program defining upset. If they do find a way to win this game, I think it could turn this thing into a rocket ship, even for as many seniors as they have this year, in terms of just the buildup of what feels like a solid, foundationally built program for Hamilton.
Yeah, you can't deny what a win like this would do for them. You don't want to say they're happy just to make it to the playoffs, but at the same time, that's a big thing. That's an achievement to make it into the playoffs for where this team has been. And so, right away, you're kind of feeling like you've achieved some things that hasn't been done for a little while. And so now if you're able to pull off an upset like this against a Unity team, that's a thing that can definitely get a lot of momentum behind your program. You get a lot of players to buy in. Even though it'll be a lot of guys, regardless of how the season ends, that'll be moving on from this Hamilton team. You've got younger players that now see it's possible. You've got guys buying in. And I think you can definitely see this team take off into where, now the expectation is you make the playoffs every season.
Yeah, and for the Hamilton offense, the question is, what are we going to see? We talked about this offense. We saw them a couple weeks ago. I love this offense, by the way. It's so cool what they do because if they can go flex bone, an old school triple option on you, they'll do that. Otherwise, they'll go into what's kind of a one-back spread. It's got some ski because they don't want to throw it a ton. They want to run the ball or at least find balance at minimum, but they would love to hammer you. So it's almost almost like a Rich Rod one-back spread / ski gun type of offense a little bit, where they get very creative in the run game at all times and also can throw off. It's a very unique because again they put guys in motion. Essentially, it's the concepts of the flex bone, but out of a 3-wide shotgun spread that they use with motion. So a long question setup, as I often give you. What are we going to see? Do we see more of the spread, more of the flex bone? Are we going to have to see them pass the ball? I'm leading the witness, but are we going to have to see them pass the ball more than they maybe even want to do versus this Unity defense?
Yeah, I think you'd have to imagine it's going to involve throwing the football. I mean, at their core, I think this team probably still wants to be flex bone if it works.
Yeah.
That's the thing, and I think it definitely helps now having the ability to go to the more spread, ski gun, whatever type of creative offense is the exact wordage for it. But the fact that they have that can change some things and gives them a chance in a game like this or against any team of kind of more power and stuff like that that could maybe match the flex bone and shut that down in years past where you've kind of got nowhere to turn. Now they do have at least that element to where, hey, we can throw this at you. I don't know how much it's going to be from the jump. I have to imagine that they kind of know that in order to win this game, you're going to need to pull some stuff. You're going to need to get creative with your offense, show them some things they haven't seen. And so I think you'll probably see it pretty early on. I think still going to mix in some of that flex bone offense because it's who they are still, but being prepared to throw that other element at them.
Yeah, and again, they have in the duo of Hawkins and Bronkhorst in the backfield. I mean, of running back duos or trios that we've seen, running back rooms that we've seen this year, Hamilton legitimately has, in terms of really just talented, hard physical runners, they've got some burst too. They are in one of the top groups we've seen. I think the Grandville running back room is still the best we've seen, regardless of division, just because you have Terry Sadinsky. However, let's talk about the other side of the ball, which actually is both sides of the ball. In terms of a trio that also happens to be the linebackers for the team, is this unity trio of Vancouvering, Viss, and Steenstra. They're different. I previously would have said the 21 trio for this team, by the way, but because they're different, because they're so physical. In terms of being physical, two-way players, is there as good of a trio in the backfield and at the linebacking core as what Unity has with these three guys this year? Because they're just incredible as physical specimens.
Yeah, no, I think there's not many that jump out to you that can match what they do. I think both sides of the football, when you've got those same three guys, it's pretty rare that both playing both ways and all at the same position there, where you got guys that all can make plays offensively, that are physical, strong runners, can still have enough speed to make some big plays down the field, and then you go right to the other side of the ball, and they're doing the exact same thing except shutting it down. Now they're filling run gaps and able to make tackles and playing some coverage in there as well. And yeah, when you've got those three guys that just at all times can be making plays on either side of the football, it really is invaluable.
Yeah, and really, exceptionally smart quarterbacks for both teams, I think, as well, in DeHoop and Petrulia. I think the X factor we all know is the way that Unity Christian can mash you up front. Mm-hmm. The way they physically move everyone, but the way they physically just moved Zeeland West, both sides of the ball, the way they won up front against Zeeland West in that game that we saw. Again, it was 20-8, but Shillito stole a score right before the half with kind of the pass game and whatever. Like, it could have been a shutout. It could have been a 28-0 shutout easy based on the game script. Like, here's my question. With two teams that kind of want to be physical, and with Unity being what they have been all year long, it's obviously an incredibly difficult task. How can Hamilton win this game, facing a deficit up front and, at other positions that everyone in the state, frankly, in Division 4 is going to face? What is the script? How can Hamilton win this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be easy no matter how you want to figure it out. But I think, it starts on the offensive end and trying to be creative and finding a way to be able to score some points. I think
Barron's double, triple reverses.
Yes, I think you likely will see some trick plays to some extent, and we'll see how many of them there will be. But
see if they got Donovan Edwards on the team.
You never know. You never know what you could see. But yeah, I think you're going to have to catch them off guard a little bit with the trick plays, just because if you run your just base stuff, I think this Unity team is probably good enough that they're going to keep you in check enough to win the football game. And so it doesn't have to be a full game of running craziness, but I think at the same time, you need more than what you normally do in order to keep yourself in it. But defensively, it's going to be tough because to try to match their physicality, not many teams can do that in the entire tournament that they'll be playing here. It's going to be hard to find a team that'll be able to do that. And so I think you just got to try to limit the amount of big plays they have down the field. Try to make them sustain a drive. If you can make them pick up multiple first downs to go down the length of the field and score and make them have a long drive, that's kind of needs to be what you're aiming for. I think if you're able to do that, you'll find yourself in situations where you can get off the field. But if you're the second Unity Christian offense is on the field, if you're giving up a long touchdown run and they're scoring, that's how the game gets away from you right away, and then what you do on offense kind of doesn't really matter.
Hamilton defense, that was incredible through the first 6 weeks of the year. They have given up quite a few more. I think they've given up 28 or more than 28 in 4 of their last 5 games or something, kind of down the stretch. They've started to allow more higher scoring points really outside the game. We saw it was their lowest scoring game of that run down the stretch. So they're going to need that defense to come back to the early season level, and I think it's going to come down to, if Hamilton wins, it probably is. It stays low scoring, there's a turnover or two, and it winds up being a 14-13 type game that maybe Hamilton wins on 2-point conversion miss for Unity or something. I think that's probably or 15-14 or 16-15 where they kind of flip the math or whatever on. I think that's what it is. And again, it's a tough task, and it's we certainly have given Unity a lot of love, and for good reason this year, because Unity is really good. It's that simple. So again, Hamilton, Unity Christian, 6:30 on the Michigan Game Night YouTube, on MichiganSportsRadio.com, on the Michigan Sports Radio app. We'll be there with our live Radio Plus coverage with stats and a couple new features, by the way, too. We've kind of changed a little bit, kind of some different network requirements on some of the different things we have going on with MSR. So we've added we've changed out some features on our broadcast and what stats and different things we're showing you. So you're going to have to tune in to see what we've cooked up this year, because you never know with us what we've got cooked up. We've got some things coming with that. So make sure you tune in. Make sure you tune in all playoff run long. We will have a lot, assuming they win this game, of this team's playoff run. On every game of their playoff run will be on MSR, and it'll be us doing the bulk of the games again. We'll see if we can bring them some good luck. Right. On just the final game.
Forget about that one.
Where we didn't give them good luck in 21. But, looking forward to it. We'll see y'all then. We'll take a quick step aside when we come back. We're going to make some picks. Who's winning these state championships on the drive to Detroit? Gear up this season with the MGN Shop. Featuring everything from t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, and outerwear, to water bottles, stickers, and other accessories that help show off your style and your support of Game Night, the Grandville Bulldogs, and more. To shop, click on the Shop Merch tab at the top of MichiganGameNight.com and browse nearly 50 items. And be sure to check in frequently as new items are added throughout the season. That's the MGN Shop through MichiganGameNight.com. All right, welcome back to Game Night. Nate Dreyer, Chandler Timmer, either on our playoff preview show or tuned into the Bennett Center Farmers Insurance Agency pregame show. Next segment here, we are going to take a look around the playoffs and make some playoff picks. So first off, kind of D6 through D8, we're going to just kind of discuss some favorites. And then when we get into the top 5 divisions, which are more divisions that we cover and see often here on Game Night and on Michigan Sports Radio, Chandler and I are each going to make our picks, pick our champion, pick our runner-up in some cases, maybe talk about some options of what the Final Four might be as well. So certainly looking forward to here as the drive to Detroit is most certainly on here on Game Night. D8, I think this is one, again, just kind of talking about some favorites, look on both sides of the bracket. I saw Fowler in basketball last year, and essentially, all those guys play on the football field, of course, as well. Super talented group. I think they're the top-ranked team. And the one thing I did see in D8 is most of the top 10, 8 of those teams are on the west side bracket. So I think really it's going to come down to who comes out of there. I think Fowler's really good. Of course, you get a lot of up north teams. Gabriel Richard out of Riverview, the other side of the state, is certainly one in there. More to talk about, I think. So D7's interesting because right now I believe Menominee is the top-ranked team. Now, if you remember last year, they played Lumen Christi in the championship.
That's right.
And lost that game. Well, Lumen Christi, talking about D6 as well, they opt up to D6 this year, and they're a favorite there, of course, as well. So I saw it's been 20-plus years, I think, since a 11-man champion has come out of the UP. So certainly that's interesting. Some good teams there. D6, like I said, I think Lumen Christi is probably a favorite. The X factor, though, is there's a lot of teams from the Michigan Sports Radio coverage area. Central Montcalm, Reed City, we've done a lot of their games. They're really good. They've been killing some teams. And then also the ultimate X factor in D6, Ralph Munger and Newaygo.
Yeah.
I know they've got a couple of losses to a team like Reed City on the board, but I'm not sure I would want to bet against in a D6 type setting. If you have the coaching of Ralph Munger there, I don't know if I'd want to bet against that.
No, I don't think you do. You've been covering them all season and getting to hear a little bit of how he's rebuilt that program. And you have to get all that experience and then get him in a D6 format like that. There's no doubt that even though they've got a couple losses, that experience could be really valuable.
Yeah, and I imagine Lumen Christi versus Newaygo if you get that matchup in the playoffs, because you got Herb Brogan, who's in his 45th season, and I don't even know I don't even know how many it is now, state champion at Lumen Christi, and then Ralph Munger, who of course is Ralph Munger. Like that, that could be incredible fireworks in a game that will be on Michigan Sports Radio. All right, let's get into our picks. Let's start with Division 5. So let's both list our championship game, and then we'll say who we have winning it afterwards. So in my championship game, from the west side of the bracket, I've got West Catholic.
Okay.
And then I've got Pontiac Notre Dame Prep.
Oh, wow. Okay. We starting off right on.
I think it's pretty straightforward. I think you look at what Notre Dame Prep did to Catholic Central, what Unity did to Notre Dame Prep, not to give away the next pick, but I know where both of us are going in the D4 as well.
Yep.
So then it comes down to that game. I'll start. I got West Catholic. I think they're on a roll.
Yep, I do too. I think watching them last week was definitely impressive. 6-3, the record might not jump out at you, but watching them in person, some of the quarterback play, the weapons that they've got, the defense along with it, I would not be surprised if they find themselves another championship game.
They can do everything, and that offense is creative. Grady Augustin, the lefty junior, he's good, and he's getting better. But you can just see when they keep him, especially when they stay ahead of the chains and on rhythm, and obviously they can run the ball incredibly well. David Brittenfeld is a tank of a running back that also has got some speed to him, and they've got a huge line. Like, when they stay on schedule on offense and they turn the game into Augustin where he's able to make kind of quick read, RPO throws, and he throws lasers when he's able to make those quick read throws. If they keep him on schedule, their offense is going to be unbeatable. I think that's just honestly, they just have to not get greedy. Because I think the game plan there, if they just stay physical, they run, they stay ahead of schedule, they pick their battles with Augustin, I think they're going to be untouchable. Again, Notre Dame Prep, really good. And I think we're going to get a better, we're making the picks now, of course, but we get a better sense after West Catholic and Catholic Central likely play next week, because then you can kind of compare through common opponents with that. But we both have West Catholic over Notre Dame Prep in D5. I'll let you go first in Division 4.
Okay. You kind of hinted at it, I think, so we're probably going to be pretty similar here. I've got Unity Chelsea.
We have never agreed this much on anything. So, again, in D4, there are, I think, the west side of the bracket, I don't know if anyone can stop Unity. The east side of the bracket is a mess. You've got Freeland. You've got Harper Woods, of course, still hanging out there. I mean, they don't have Jacob Odom, but they have everyone else, including Dakota Grant, back on that team this year. Harper Woods is just, they're hanging out there. And yes, Freeland, of course, is really good. And I'm missing, a couple other teams that are even, potentially kind of higher ranked. But I don't know. I picked it for the flat. Oh, by the way, Noel Dean is the head coach at Chelsea.
Yep.
So just by the way, also. So yeah, and then you get the rematch. Who do you have in the rematch?
I've got Unity.
So do I.
I think they get some revenge. A few years later than maybe some of them wanted.
Yeah, right.
But no, I
don't think anyone's on the team from 21, but yeah.
No. Yeah, I think Unity gets it done. I think from what we saw of them this year, expecting some big things, wouldn't be surprised to see them take home a state championship.
Yeah, and of course we'll get to see them this week and really see where they're at again. And yeah, no, I agree. I think I wrote a column in my 4 Downs column. I talked about this being the Seder Revenge Tour 2.0, because the first one, coming off a year they had COVID shorten their season, and they killed everyone in 21 until the way it ended. And I think it would just be poetic, and I root for stories, and we would do this game in this case. If you told me that you and I, if I could sign up for one game to do, and you could sign me up to do Unity Christian Chelsea with Noel Dean this time running Chelsea, that's what I want. So I'm just speaking. But also, by the way, like if it's Harper Woods again, I'd love to see them in that game as well. Or so many other teams. Obviously, I'm sure Lou Gamlin is heavily rooting for Freeland because he'd be doing the game. Then on that side, so certainly that's something that we're looking forward to. So far, we are with each other. Division 3. I will start. This is my first upset, I think. Because the west side of the state absolutely, unquestionably runs through DeWitt. I saw one, I don't know if it was Goose Poop or someone had like percentages, and it had them at like 64% chance to win the state championship. Like it broke the numbers because DeWitt is that heavily favored. However, I'm going to go a little bit Homer. We've seen him a couple times. Darn it! This isn't even fun. So I've got Zeeland West and Detroit King playing in the championship game.
Okay. We got one different.
Okay.
It's probably not the one some people are thinking. We both have Zeeland West. So,
okay. Not the one. So we both picked the same upset.
Yes,
that's probably the wrong pick. Like the most wrong pick you could possibly make. We made like out of our hearts. But we can talk about it. I do think Zeeland West is that good.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Everything you were starting to say there, I was already nodding and agreeing with. So Zeeland West is the west side, and I've got Walled Lake Western from the east side.
It was either or for me. When I looked at Detroit King, I looked at Darryl Flemister, their sophomore. He's their quarterback. He's their top defensive back. He has 15 Division I, most of which Power 4 offers.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at King having an elite D1 power quarterback, even though Ty Spencer is no longer there, I just kind of assume that they are what they are who we thought they were.
Right.
And they always are. Same as Zeeland West. And again, Zeeland West things, when they get in that playoff run, teams don't see the T. For me, the X factor is Trey Slotok.
Yeah.
He is so good. We've talked about it like this past week after seeing him again. We've seen a lot of T football. He might be the best T quarterback I've ever seen with his arm, but especially with his leg. The closest thing was Grandville, Jaden Van Duzen in 2019 before he got hurt. The way he changed that, he was like leading the state in rushing through 2 weeks as a T quarterback. And Trey Slotok, like again, Coach Shoto's changed the offense. He's almost got some option elements in it this year. Like Slotok literally is their top rusher in terms of attempts. Like he's the X factor, of course, does on both sides of the ball and will have to do it, But yeah, so with that, that's who's in the game. Who do you have winning the Division III state championship?
Well, I picked him to be in the game, and I don't expect him to lose there. So I'm going Zeeland West. I think the health of Slotok is kind of what you were just saying as well. As we saw him this team early on in the season, the game he missed against Zeeland East, where they won pretty handily, but at the same time they looked a little beatable. That versus kind of checkpoints throughout the rest of the season. Now seeing him in Week 9, they look like a different team when he's fully healthy and rolling. So hard to pick against him. I think they make the championship game. I think they win it.
I've got the same. So I've got him over King. You've got him over Walled Lake Western. So yeah, I think that's. DeWitt is such a heavy favorite, but again, you never know when you see a T. All right, into the top two divisions here. Division 2, and do you have a Final Four for this, or just the top two?
I do have a Final Four.
We'll do a Final Four then. So my Final Four is going to be De La Salle and Orchard Lake St. Mary, which is a 4 seed, but is one of the highest rate. I'm trying to make...
This isn't prepared. Like, this isn't, we didn't go over this. This is live react.
If anyone's ever seen us, we never pick the same thing. So I have De La Salle and Orchard Lake St. Mary's.
Okay.
I have Mona Shores and East Lansing.
Okay.
You a little bit different?
Yeah, so the De La Salle, Orchard Lake St. Mary's got exactly the same. There's one game that is a West Side game that.
Oh, you're sticking with it?
I think I'm gonna stick with it.
Okay, you might as well.
They've kind of been, going back through all the years that we've done this, they've kind of been my team that for no reason I've kind of picked, and it always seems to have kind of backfired on me looking back. But I've got my Final Four comes down to the winner of the Byron Center Mona Shores game.
Who do you have winning that game?
I picked Byron Center.
Okay,
I'm picking Byron Center. But I'm throwing the caveat in there that Mona Shores wins that game.
Okay,
Thank
you for going out on a limb.
Yep, and Dexter is the final.
Okay, Dexter,
final.
yeah, the Dreadnoughts, greatest mascot, logo, favorite mascot. And if you don't know what a Dreadnought is, it's like a World War I era class, like heavy battleship. We're gonna go into Nate history.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've already got this whole lecture.
This is something that Chandler knows I can get into that we're not going to get into. But I think they were built in the Dexter area, during World War I, and then that turned into the only class you saw by World War II, and that's kind of the modern idea of what the battleship Arizona would have looked like. So then, in the state championship game, I have De La Salle and I have Mona Shores making it. And again, I have to pick Mona Shores for the same reason that you picked Byron Center, because they have been my team since the very, very beginning this year.
Yes.
When everyone else saw them as the third best team in the conference, I had them. So I have De La Salle, Mona Shores in the D2 championship game. What do you have?
I've got De La Salle, Byron Center.
Okay, so then state championship game. And again, De La Salle's like a 3 seed, by the way, I think. Their only losses, though, are to Toledo Catholic Central and Detroit Catholic Central. So the best team, maybe in Ohio, best private school team this year in Ohio, and probably the best team in the state of Michigan this year. Not to get ahead of ourselves of talking about next games, possibly. But, so yeah, De La Salle, Mona Shores. I do have Coach Roan getting one back. I have De La Salle going back, taking the state championship this year over Mona Shores. They get a little bit of revenge against the city of Muskegon.
Yeah, right. Close enough. I've got De La Salle as well. I think they win the game. Couldn't quite get myself to pick the Bulldogs there in the game, or Mona Shores for that matter, if that's the one I'm picking that game. So
again, for me, it's looking at De La Salle's loss. It's like, yeah, they've lost twice, but like those 2 losses, really, really good loss. All right, Division I, the big schools. Final 4 from the east side of the state. I've got Detroit Catholic Central, and I have Cass Tech. So notably, you'll see that meant in a regional final, I did pick over future Michigan quarterback Bryce Underwood and Belleville, and I do have Detroit Catholic Central in that one. And then on the other side of the bracket, I've got maybe a couple upsets get us there, but I've got Davison and Howell for my Final 4.
Okay, my Final 4, from the east side, I've got Belleville, Cass Tech. West side, I have Howell, Grand Blanc.
Grand Blanc, interesting. So, yeah, I mean, for me, again, that Grand Blanc Davison game likely is kind of the interesting one for me. I've planted my flag on Davison for a couple of years. I nearly was able to ride it all the way last year for the way the bracket kind of fell on him. So, yeah, so then into the state championship game, I do have Detroit Catholic Central beating Cass Tech, and I have Davison using the experience that they have from playing Grandville, another T team, beating Howell.
Okay, I have Belleville getting back to state championship,
Bold.
and Howell.
All right, so you've got the T. Oh, what a rematch!
I like the way that one sounded.
Yes, it sure is. So I will let you go first. So we've got. I mean, we're completely different here. So I've got Detroit Catholic Central Davison state championship game. Howell Belleville. Does Bryce Underwood go out a 3-time champion?
I think he does.
He does.
Yep. I kind of feel like it's set up to be that way. Won a couple early on in his career. Now I think he goes out with one. So I'm picking Belleville to win.
I've got probably then what is going to be one of the more smash mouth games of the year with Detroit Catholic Central. Jaden Pyden, their Army commit at defensive back and running back. Dude does it all. Skylar Hunter, their quarterback. He, of course, is insane. And again, Davison, we've seen them. Jackson Dosh is unbelievable as a quarterback. They're big up front. They've got mashers all over the place. They run the ball. A.J. Hill is, probably the best utility back in the state of Michigan. And this is a 2 seed that's probably the 4th or 5th or 6th, 7th most. Everyone is seeing them as a dark horse, but I love Davison that much. So they go in, they take on the top ranked team in playoff points all year long. Can Davison pull off the upset? They can't.
Okay.
I think Detroit Catholic Central is really good, and I think I think the state championship game is Detroit Catholic Central versus Belleville.
Yeah.
I think whoever wins that regional game will win the state championship.
Yep, I could see that as well.
All right, we'll see how close we are. Those are the picks this year. We at least had one division where we got off a little bit with a different state championship game. But as always, can't wait to get it going. 6:30, we are on the air from Grandville. Odd enough, from Grandville for Unity Christian versus Hamilton, and then of course Grandville, of course, also playing along with 12 other games on Michigan Sports Radio. Find that at MichiganSportsRadio.com, Michigan Sports Radio app. Our game will be on our YouTube page as well. Follow along on social media. He is Chandler Timmer. I'm Nate Dreyer. We'll see you Friday. The drive to Detroit is here.